Our top story this hour: the 32 countries of the International Energy Agency have agreed to release 400 million barrels of oil in the largest such move in its history. This in a collective effort to bring down oil prices, which have soared because of supply shocks linked to the US-Israel-Iran war, with Iranian attacks now largely shutting the Strait of Hormuz. Well, a short while ago, the French President Emmanuel Macron has been speaking about the move, this during a meeting of the G7.
Nous avons finalisé ces dernières heures et ça a été annoncé
In the past few hours, we finalized, it was just announced, the formal decision to release 400 million barrels of our strategic reserves. When I say we, I'm talking about the 30 or so countries that form the International Energy Agency. To give you an idea, that represents about 20 days' worth of oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz. It's significant. It's the biggest release of barrels on record.
Well, with me to talk about this is Philip Turle, our foreign editor. And so, Philip, help us understand what this means, the releasing of all of this reserve of crude by 30 countries in the IEA.
Okay, let's try and break this down to give you an idea about where we're going with all of this. The first point I think that Emmanuel Macron and the International Energy Agency is trying to underline is we're doing this to calm the markets down so that there's not going to be a sharp increase in the price of oil, which will then have a knock-on effect on fuel costs and petrol costs for people, not only in the Gulf, not only in Europe, but also in the United States. Basically, the whole point of this is to calm down the situation, while at the same time, there are efforts made to try to find a solution to the conflict in Iran and to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Now, 400 million barrels is a large amount of oil. To break that down, it's about 1% of world consumption, but it's about only enough to last for 4 days when it comes to the whole world consumption. Second thing is the 400 million barrels is about 20 days worth of the transport of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. So that does give some leeway to shipping companies, to oil companies, and to governments to say, well, we have got a reserve that is available to us, which would last for about 20 days, in the hope that between now and 20 days' time, the war in Iran will have come to an end and we will be able to get back to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz and oil supplies to return to some sort of normality. This is being broken down as far as France is concerned. The amount that France has got to contribute is about 14.5 million barrels. That's about 10% of France's strategic reserves, which will be contributed towards these 400 million barrels, which are to be released. So that's where we are right now. This is a joint effort by all those countries, members of the International Energy Agency, to say, okay, we know what's going on. We don't want this to get out of control. We don't want prices to spiral upwards too much, but we need to put pressure to find an end to what's going on in Iran. In the meantime, we're going to release these barrels to try to stabilise the market.
And look, also in the meantime, Philip, the Iranian attacks on those few ships that are trying to go through the Strait of Hormuz continues. We saw 3 attacks apparently on ships today. Donald Trump, though, the US president, saying, look, he thinks perhaps the war is nearly over.
Well, Donald Trump has been saying, yes, the war is nearly over, but we don't really know what that war being nearly over means. I mean, he was contradicted by his Minister of War, Secretary of State Hegseth, 2 days ago, saying we're just getting started in this war. So nobody really knows what the war is really over and what the exit strategy is by Donald Trump. But certainly there are rumors now flying around. We could see President Trump speaking very shortly about what his future plans are. He's due to take a helicopter out of the White House in just a few minutes. What he has been blowing hot and cold about is maybe even sending in on-the-ground troops to the area around the Strait of Hormuz to try to alleviate the situation there, or to launch bombing raids in the Strait of Hormuz. These bombing raids won't be enough to make it safe enough for the shipping to go through, because the mines that can cause so much damage to shipping are hidden all over the place, and they can't be found by bombing raids, but they could be found or destroyed if there were troops on the ground. And that is something that the United States has said that it may envisage, but we haven't had that confirmed by President Trump. But there are three main risks as far as shipping in the Strait of Hormuz is concerned. The first one is that Iran can open fire on them from the coastline. The second one is that there are mines that can destroy the ships that are either already in the Strait of Hormuz or which can be placed on ships that are sailing through by undersea divers. And the third one for the shipping companies is the massive increase in insurance costs.
Yeah.
We've seen like $200 to $300 million worth vessels going through there, which means that they have been paying up until now per vessel about $650,000 to go through the Strait of Hormuz, but that's now gone up to, in some cases, up to $7.5 million per vessel. That's about 3% of the overall value of each vessel, which means that is just not possible for many companies to be able to pay that amount of money until this whole situation calms down.